The Security Cabinet has unanimously approved the plan to expand the IDF military operation in Gaza. The decision comes amid the delivery of tens of thousands of draft orders to reservists. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly told the ministers the battle plan is different from previous ones in Gaza, transitioning from raids to seizing and remaining in territory. The Prime Minister said he also continues to promote Trump's plan to allow for the voluntary emigration of Gazans. According to Israeli officials, the Gaza war plan will only be implemented after U.S. President Trump visits the region next week. Until that time, Israel will continue efforts to reach an agreement with Hamas on a ceasefire for hostages deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly said, "We will achieve full and total victory in Gaza. Victory will bring the hostages." 2 months after closing all entry points and outside assistance, the Security Cabinet approved the plan to renew humanitarian aid deliveries into Gaza. The plan included an overhaul to prevent Hamas from stealing the aid to benefit its war efforts. The aid delivery will be renewed without the direct involvement of IDF soldiers, who will be tasked with providing an outer layer of security for private contractors and international groups handing out the assistance. The ministers were also told that there is currently enough food in Gaza. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir said that tens of thousands of draft orders were sent out this week to our reserve personnel to intensify and expand our actions in Gaza. Speaking to the Shayetet 13 Naval Commando Unit, Zamir also said that the military is increasing pressure to release the hostages and defeat Hamas. Zamir said that the IDF will operate in additional areas and destroy all of Hamas infrastructure above and below ground.
Syrian Drews say attacks on their community are continuing even after a week of violent clashes that left more than 100 dead. They say pro-government groups not only continue to threaten the group, but just yesterday a sacred site was destroyed. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has been speaking with the Druze about the situation on the ground. In this interview, a Syrian Druze activist spoke with her on condition of anonymity, asking we blur his face, change his voice, and not use his name out of fear he could be targeted for speaking out.
Why do you want to speak out now? Why is it so important for you to use your voice at this time after a week of violent clashes? Why now?
Agencies try to get in touch, but I have no trust in them as they're not delivering the right message. That's why we reached out. The situation it cannot be stopped. We shouldn't shut our mouths until we are all killed. The community should know what's going on. A lot of rumors are spreading by their media, which is covering up all their crimes. We need to speak up. We need to spread the message. Something should be done to stop this massacre. We're a small minority, maybe one of the smallest in the world. So why should we get exterminated for something we didn't do?
Although there's been some de-escalation after last week's deadly violent clashes, Syrians say attacks are ongoing. They also say they're in imminent danger and are trying to fight back as much as they can, as they say they can't trust they'll be protected.
It's not safe. Everyone is panicking all the time. A lot of rumors are spreading by their side to make us attack them and blame us. They're shooting in the air all the time, so that we will shoot back and a conflict will go on. This is about something jihadists would do to extremize all the minorities in the region. They have a bigger plan. No one is talking about it. No one is trying to stop them.
Meanwhile, Syrian Drews now say their holy site of Prophet Al-Hadr was burned by groups on Sunday, as locals say their culture and religion is also being attacked.
This is a systematic genocide. We never had any conflicts with other people except these extremists who attacked us for no reason. We don't deal with things like them. We are not criminals. We are defending our land and soil till the last bloodshed in our veins.
As the IDF says they've hit targets in Syria following the attacks and have airlifted Syrian Druze out for medical treatment, Israeli Druze say it's Israel's moral obligation to help.
This is extremely important. I believe that Israel has a moral obligation to the Jewish community, especially in Israel and outside of Israel, to uphold the alliance that was there for the victim to and the Israeli society.
Now, Shosh Bedrosian joins us to debrief. Shosh, can you tell us what it was like speaking with Syrian Drews who are actively defending themselves there?
Emily, it is our job as journalists to make sure we are speaking with people on the ground affected by what is happening inside of Syria, outside of Damascus. The Druze activist I spoke with said he felt like he had no choice but to speak with the media at this point. They are so worried that if the media stops covering these attacks that they say are ongoing to the Druze community in Syria, they believe matters will get much worse. A lot of these people are not sleeping at night because they fear of what could happen during the nighttime hours. They are constantly on edge. A lot of Israeli Druze supporting them, making sure they feel their support all the way from Israel to Syria. Emily?
All right, thank you, Shosh. Well, now joining us to discuss the situation in Syria further is an expert on the Arab world and an Israeli journalist from the Druze community, Lorena Katib. Lorena, thank you so much for joining us today. To start, can you break down for us what the current situation is for the Syrian Druze across that border on the north?
First of all, thank you for having me, Emily. Over the past week, our Druze brothers and sisters in Syria have been facing a brutal massacre simply because of their identity. This wave of violence was triggered, and it all started after a fake recording was shared, showing the real face behind Zulani's suit and tie. People are not fully aware of what's happening to the Druze community and other minorities in Syria, beyond the massacres and kidnappings. Just yesterday, one of the Druze most holy sites, Nabil Khadr, was set on fire, and the international community remains silent. And it's very sad to say that in our time, in 2025, people are still being killed simply because of their identity.
Now, what is the sentiment, the thinking amongst Syrian Druze in response to the recent Israeli actions that we've seen? Do they want Israeli help? And what does the Israeli Druze community hope to see Israel do in order to assist?
In the recent days, I had the chance to speak with several Syrian Drews. They deeply appreciate the efforts made by Israel, even if it came a little bit late, and especially the support of the Druze community here in Israel. However, many of them are still afraid to say it in public, but they really need our help.
Now, what is Israel's interest on this issue? I mean, why would it be in Israel's interest to act on this issue, not just in terms of humanitarian efforts, which the Druze in Syria clearly need, but also in terms of security for our own interests?
I believe that Israel has a moral obligation to the Druze community in Israel beyond, the slogans we hear on the graves of our fallen soldiers about partnership and brotherhood. Now it's the time for action. It's time to stand by the Druze and to protect us, to protect them. And even if it was late, this is finally happening. Israel is defending them. But this is not just a moral duty, It is also a strategic and security interest for Israel. If we allow extremist groups to act freely across our north border, it's only a matter of time and resources before we face another October 7th, this time in the north border. Zulani and Jabhat al-Nusra have a long and bloody history of terror that must never be ignored. By the way, in the last few days, I have received a deeply moving message from a Syrian who wrote to me, "You are lucky to have been born in a place that respects you, that protects you, and respect who you are." And I think this is sums up why we have to protect them, why we have to help them.
Now, there are a lot of terror groups in Syria. You mentioned already some of them, and they're escalating the situation. Even Jolani himself has a history of terrorism. Can you explain a little bit about these groups in Syria that are fighting against the Druze? Who are they? And can you talk about how this minority is and has been targeted throughout the Middle East?
Sure, most of the violence is coming from Islamist groups, extremist groups that support Zulani's new leadership. The audio recording was just an excuse. What they really want is to force extreme jihad and to force extreme, to believe in what they are not, and to control everyone. I also think that, the visits of the Druze religious leaders to Israel recently made these groups even more angry and forced them to act against the Druze minority, especially in Syria.
And I wanted to ask you as a final question a little bit about the Israeli Druze community. We know that they're very, very active in the state. They serve in every level of almost every industry. Can you talk a little bit about the Israeli Druze community and explain for our viewers who are the Druze here in Israel?
Sure. The Druze community is known as one of the most integrated societies in Israel. In Israel, we represent around 150,000 citizens here in Israel, but we, since 1956, when the leader of the Druze community, Sheikh Amin Tarif, has signed an agreement with the government that every Druze citizen has to enlist and join the army. Every year, 85% of the Druze community join the army. We are an integral part of the Druze of the Israeli society. We are a small minority, but we have our impact here in Israel. We are integrated in the army and every aspect in Israel. And many of the Israelis don't understand why we as the Druze should protect our brothers and sisters from Syria. We Druze are like a copper pan. When one Druze hurts anywhere in the world, we all feel and we come together to protect and to support them. This is one of the most important values, I think, in our community: the unity, the solidarity, and the standing together, no matter where we are, who we are. And this is what defines us.
All right. Well, we are unfortunately out of time, but I want to thank you to the Israeli Druze journalist Lorena Katib for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, in England, 8 men, including 7 Iranian nationals, have been arrested in 2 separate anti-terror operations. 3 suspects were arrested in London and 5 others were grabbed across the country, suspected of a plot to target specific unnamed premises. The Home Secretary described the operations as among the biggest counter-terror operations in the UK in recent years. According to British officials, since 2022, it had responded to 20 plots backed by the Islamic Republic, which presented potentially lethal threats to UK residents. This week, a wave of explosions rippled across Iran, from Bandar Abbas to Karaj, Mashhad, Qam, Isfahan, and beyond. But let's be clear, this isn't a foreign war that's being waged on Iran. This is a war that's being waged against the Iranian people by their own regime. In Bandar Abbas, over 70 people were killed, hundreds are missing, and hundreds more injured when a stockpile of missile fuel shipped from China detonated at the port. 2,200 cars were damaged. The environmental fallout is still unfolding. And why? Because the Islamic regime stored ballistic missile fuel without basic safety precautions. This isn't an Israeli attack. This is Khamenei's negligence. His obsession with exporting terror throughout proxies is literally blowing up Iran. In Karaj this week, 2 fires broke out, one in a cardboard factory, another near the power plant and Kalaya Electric Company, which is currently under U.S. sanctions for supplying the Islamic regime. Meanwhile, the regime tried to blame an earthquake. Meanwhile, in Mashhad, an explosion hit a motorcycle parts factory that supplies the IRGC and regime police. In Qam, fire tore through an industrial zone. In Mehmed, near Isfahan, a gunpowder factory under regime supervision went up in flames. How many injured? How many dead? We may never know, because the regime is more interested in lying to its people than protecting them. And while Iranian citizens burn from the inside out, the regime is still funding attacks abroad. Just days ago, the Houthis in Yemen, a terror proxy of the Islamic regime, fired a ballistic missile at Israel's Ben Gurion airport. 27 missiles, as well as many drones, have been launched since March 18th. And in Tehran, they're bragging about it with new banners. The mullahs are so hell-bent on destroying the West and Israel, they can't even keep the lights on in their own country. Power plants are on fire, factories are imploding, and basic infrastructure is failing. At this rate, they will burn Iran to the ground without Israel ever firing a single shot. And they want a nuclear weapon? Meanwhile, who's paying for this? The Iranian people. They're starving while Khamenei builds drones for the Houthis, for Russia, and for other terrorist proxies. They're bleeding while the regime funnels cash to Hezbollah. And the nuclear program, just one of many examples of how this regime chooses death over dignity. So let me say this clearly. The people of Israel and the people of Iran are on the same side of this issue. Neither of us started this war, but together, Israelis and Iranians, we will finish it.
In a rapidly changing Middle East, Israel must stay ahead of emerging threats. What cutting-edge technologies will keep Israel safe? Brigadier General Professor Jacob Nagel reveals the bold strategies and breakthrough defense tech he recently recommended to Prime Minister Netanyahu in an exclusive security briefing from the American Technion Society.
Iran is weaker than ever, and someone has to take the opportunity doing something about it.
Visit ats.org/Nagel to watch the full briefing now.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Israeli-Hamas war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Israel Bonds pledges to ensure Israel thrives and flourishes. Investing in Israel Bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
And now Prime Minister Netanyahu convened the security cabinet last night, hours after a missile attack hit Ben Gurion International Airport. Netanyahu told the cabinet that Israel will retaliate against the Houthis and its patron, Iran. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has more.
Prime Minister Netanyahu told the cabinet, we will act against the Houthis and their patron, Iran. We will not tolerate the attacks, and we will take strong action against them. Israel is reportedly considering revising its recent policy toward the Houthis and would return to direct response to the missile fire. Since Trump took office, and due to his request, Israel has refrained from striking targets in Yemen, while the U.S. is taking military action. Prime Minister Netanyahu has endorsed the March post of President Trump, vowing to hold Iran responsible for every shot fired at Israel by the Houthis. During the Biden administration, Israel struck Houthi targets in Yemen 5 times, beginning in July 2024. The cabinet discussion on the Houthis came hours after a Houthi missile crashed into the area of Ben Gurion Airport, injuring several people. It also caused a pause in incoming and outgoing flights, causing many in and out of Israel to be stranded. Over 20 flights were canceled, and some airlines also canceled flights for the next several days. They include British Airways and the Lufthansa Group. U.S. carrier United halted flight service from Tel Aviv to New York's Newark Airport at least until Thursday. El Al offered special prices to help Israelis to get back home from nearby destinations, with extra flights from Greece and Cyprus.
The World Jewish Congress has named prominent Jewish leader and advocate J. Philip Rosen as the new chair of its American section. At a time when Jewish communities in the U.S. and around the world face growing threats, Rosen steps into the role with a clear mission: to amplify the American Jewish voice, bolster ties with the U.S. administration, and unite global efforts in the fight against anti-Semitism. Thank you so much for being here. Now, what is the main goal of the World Jewish Congress American section?
So the World Jewish Congress is the main organization around the world uniting and supporting Jewish communities throughout the United States, throughout the world. The fight against anti-Semitism is a complete effort, needs everybody to step in and work on it. It's the fight of our lives. While Israel is fighting its enemies on 7 different fronts, we have hundreds of fronts where there are anti-Semitic acts and anti-Semitic people, and we need to fight that fight as a unified world, Jewish world.
Now, why did you accept this position?
Because I felt that I probably could do it and want to do it, and I'm motivated to do it as much as anybody.
Now, do you have a vision for building the American section moving forward?
So I'm going to put together, besides the current board of directors, I'm going to put together another board, an additional board of advisors, of people from all walks of Jewish society who have the desire and the drive and the motivation to help me in this effort. This is a giant effort. and it requires a lot of people, a lot of resources, and a lot of talent.
Can you explain a bit about how you'll work with the American administration in your role?
So, I know Donald Trump for a very long time. I was his lawyer for 10 years. I handled the casinos, I handled when they were good, I handled when they were bankrupt, and I worked for him on a lot of other projects. So far, and hopefully forever, he's one of the best friends, if not the best friend, the Jewish community and Israel have had in the presidency. I also am very close with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, for many, many years. And there's a lot of other people in the administration that I think the world of, and I believe think the world of me. So I'm very excited about that. And I think that, we're going to talk to them in a few weeks about what we need to continue this fight against anti-Semitism.
All right.
And to make sure they're on board fully in this effort.
All right, J. Philip Rosen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This past weekend, Israeli nature was heavily hit by a number of wildfire outbreaks across the country. After firefighters worked to contain the fires, images are now showing the extent of the damage. Have a look.
This is the damage in the Judean and Jerusalem foothill forests following the wildfires that devoured the region's nature reserves over the weekend. Firefighting teams from Cyprus, Italy, and other countries also assisted in the effort to contain the raging fires that forced communities to evacuate and streets to close. Now, the Israeli Fire Department confirmed that all fires had been contained and controlled. This is what the area looks like now. Israel's nature authorities estimate that approximately 19,600 dunam, or almost 5,000 acres of land, were burnt in the fires. The Latrun forest, once a vibrant green area, now is pictured as black and destroyed as the wildfire had spread across the forest in between Eshtaol and Park Canada, just west of Jerusalem. Israeli officials are still investigating the primary cause of the wildfires that broke in the Jerusalem area, causing multiple communities to evacuate. The evacuated residents returned over the weekend to a scene of charred wildlife and burnt agriculture. Israel's vibrant Judean forests have a long way to recover from this devastating event.
Well, roads in and out of Eilat have begun to reopen after heavy and unusual spring rains led to the closure of major roads leading to Israel's southernmost city. Routes 12, 40, 90, and 204 were closed for a number of hours as desert communities in the Arava received an entire year's worth of rainfall in one day. Record rainfall was recorded in Kibbutz Shmar and Yotvata in the southern city of Dimona. Heavy thunderstorms also brought hail. The police warned the public that it's forbidden to approach or cross flooded roads and streams. The public was also warned not to travel to areas that could be potentially flooded. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies and partly rainy showers are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of about 15 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 26 degrees Celsius or 79 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.